above all, I think I feel immensely sad. I mean, I can't pretend to be a grieving widow. We hadn't seen each other for 22 years. But I'm grieving, and I think when you said the last great American novelist, you were right. I mean, his generation is pretty well gone. I mean, there's Don DeLillo, who's Pynchon, Paul Auster, who's younger, I think. I would like to ask Howard if he thinks that the novel is a dying concern. I hope it's not. But I don't know where the great writers are now.
Howard?
I think there are probably great writers, but I think there will always be great writers. What makes Philip Roth's death so sad, I think, is that it's the end of the idea of being a writer. I don't think we're going to can't imagine another writer of his quality who will enjoy the fame he enjoyed, the éclat he enjoyed. He gave an immense amount of pleasure to an enormous number of readers all over the world. Is a writer of prose going to be able to connect in this way again? And this is where
why not?
Well, there are so many other ways that they go now, that they can go into writing for television or writing for any other medium. Philip gave his life to literature.
And did he? Because you were with him for, what, 15, 17 years. Did the writing overtake everything else in the marriage?
I can't exactly say in the marriage. We had some wonderful times together. We had some free times together, but basically he wrote. He went into his studio at the end of the garden at a certain hour, at 8:30, I think, every morning, came back for lunch, went back and wrote till 7 o'clock. It was very disciplined. That's what he did.
He had a huge idealism about America, didn't he, in those early days, Howard? A sense that America had been a place that sort of saved him, saved the world.
I don't half envy him having America. It's such a terrific thing for a writer of stature to be he was in the right place at the right time. It's a big subject. Whenever he wrote about himself, he also wrote about America. There was never a sense in which you could feel this was just this story of this particular man with his passions and so on, who happened to be here. Every novel about his character was also a novel about America. I don't think you can make a distinction. The Jewishness, the Americanness, the maleness, they all cohered in his books, which is what made every one of them, really, even the smallest of them, even the ones that don't work well. Every one is a little masterpiece, I think. It's astonishing how many great works he wrote. It was almost as though he couldn't do a bad one. He could upset people, he could fail, but every one was a thrilling book.
Well, on that note, and I started by saying it was a complicated set of emotions for you, I imagine, Claire. You wrote with anger about him. You wrote about the difficulty of his behaviour.
But I also wrote about our love, and people seem not to want to see that. They want to see there was, and I don't want to discuss it, Philip is not dead for 24 hours, and I'm not here to vilify or say anything against him, because first of all I loved him, secondly I admired him immensely, and yes, he was a writer, and you followed him or you didn't stay there.
And a tumultuous writer. I mean, it's not for me to talk about him as a man, but I can't imagine that as a man he wasn't tumultuous too. But the novels are tumult. That was a favourite word of his, tumult. There's a marvellous line in Sabbath's Theatre about for a pure sense of being alive, for a pure tumultuous sense of being alive, nothing beats the nasty side of experience.
Right.
And I'd say for a pure sense of of tumultuous joy in life, nothing beats reading a Philip Roth novel. They were so powerfully alive, exultant and raging, and those sentences, Emily. No one wrote, when I opened a new Philip Roth novel, it was never mind the characters, never mind what happened, never mind the story, everything was in the sentences. Those clauses, those paragraphs in which sentence followed sentence, like waves of the sea crashing upon one another, arguing with one another, expostulating, exasperated sentences, which crashed over you as the reader. I mean, you drowned in Philip Roth. You willingly drowned in Philip Roth sometimes. It was a thrilling experience.
Does it sadden you when you see a newer, a younger generation come in and start talking about the problematic character of his novels? It's a very difficult word, that, isn't it? But whether it was in how he depicted women or how he talked about sex, I mean, do you think that's going to be a problem for generations now? Well,
it was a problem. It's been a problem all along. It was a problem he had to deal with. He dealt with it sometimes with great aplomb and dignity, and he knew that these were irrelevancies, and every other novelist knew, did they not? These were irrelevancies. The man made art.
Right. And Claire, how will you remember him? Will it be through the writing, through your...
No, I remember him from day to day. Joy and unhappiness and education. I got an education from him. I mean, I'd always read a great deal, but he introduced me to the Eastern European writers, to so many wonderful treasures that I had not known. How will I remember him? I remember him in the country, and we used to go for walks, and you know, I remember the joyful, wonderful times, peaceful times. To know him, to remember him as a writer, is to remember a kind of agony that he went through every day. As he said, he would go into his studio and there would be a blank piece of paper and he had to fill it. And sometimes he came out of that studio exultant, as you say, tumultuously exultant, sometimes deeply, deeply depressed.
Clever.
That side of him existed, but that was not my side. My side of him was pleasure and joy and love.